400 years ago, a king who believed his power came directly from God lost his throne and his head. This macabre anniversary may seem irrelevant to a modern American college community, but campus scholars suggest otherwise. According to Britannica, King Charles I remains the only English monarch ever executed, an event that shocked Europe and forever changed the balance of power between rulers and the people they governed. He was the son of King James I and inherited not only the throne but a strong belief in the divine right of kings. Professor of history Brandon Marsh talks about Charles's unwavering belief in the divine right of kings and how it put him on a collision course with Parliament.
Very fixed ideas of why he was king and what rights he had as king. And those rights and ideas were very much at odds with the views of many of the English elite at the time.
Marsh said that conflict grew as Charles attempted to raise money without Parliament's approval, using legal loopholes and controversial taxes. Parliament controlled what was known as the power of the purse, meaning taxation required their consent. But Charles ruled for 11 years without even calling Parliament into session, a period historians refer to as his personal rule.
Parliament wasn't an institution, it was an event. So you Parliament sometimes would be held every couple of years or something. You held Parliament because you needed them to vote you funds.
Okay.
The entire point of Parliament was the purse. You needed Parliament. That was how British monarchs, starting with King John and Magna Carta, basically how they got their funds was by asking Parliament, the taxed, if it was okay if they got taxed.
Without Parliament's approval, Charles turned to old and often obscure laws to fund his government. Lawmakers feared he was trying to create a tyranny, while Charles believed he was exercising his rightful authority. Marsh explains that many members of Parliament, including a growing Puritan elite, believed the king was ignoring the spirit of English law. The dispute eventually erupted into the English Civil War, a bloody conflict that left more than 100,000 people dead. When the war ended, Charles was put on trial for treason. For the first time in English history, a sitting monarch stood before his own people to answer for his actions. Associate Professor of English Christian Sheridan, who studies and teaches medieval literature, gave his thoughts on what Marsh spoke about. He says the execution was like anything people had ever seen.
The only English monarch to ever get his head chopped off. That's probably the most important thing about him. I know it's maybe not the most pleasant thing to think about, but he's the only English monarch ever to have been executed. Yeah, so and after his reign.
Sheridan notes that English kings were believed to be anointed by God, making the execution not just political, but spiritually shocking to many. The aftermath transformed England's government. After Charles's death, Oliver Cromwell took power during a period known as the Interregnum, essentially a military dictatorship that suspended Parliament altogether. According to the Royal Database of England, in the years that followed, Parliament grew stronger, and the idea that a leader could be challenged became more accepted. Sheridan says Charles's rule marked a turning point away from absolute monarchy. Although the monarchy was eventually restored, the balance of power had shifted. Events like the Glorious Revolution of 1688 continued to limit royal authority and strengthen Parliament. So why should Americans care about a British king from the 1600s?
The founders assumed that there would be conflicts between the executive and the legislature, right? The idea that a certain faction within the legislature and the executive would basically try to do down the legislature would be something that they feared.
Yeah.
Because certainly things like that happened in the 18th century in Britain and in the late 17th century, but was something that they assumed that the friction within the government would be between the branches rather than parties.
That fear, Marsh says, was shaped in part by Britain's own political struggles, including the reign of Charles I. Marsh says many of the political debates we see today, including fears of tyranny and questions about who controls the government spending, were already being argued during Charles's reign.
the fear of tyranny, the fear of a standing army, the questions of who controls the purse. I mean, these are all questions that were at the forefront of the founders.
Marsh says those same concerns were very much on the minds of Americans' founders when they wrote the Constitution, building a system designed to prevent any one branch of government from holding unchecked power. For centuries later, the fall of King Charles I serves as a reminder that government authority has limits, and that even a king is not above the law. This is BC Voice, and I'm Jimmy Lepson. Thank you for listening.